This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello, welcome one and all to the Party Loaded podcast for Wednesday? I'm going to say Thursday. We're one day later than we normally are. It's the 26th of July. This is episode 137 of the fantastic show about everything great in the world of video games. I'm one of your hosts, Luke Retallick, joined tonight, partying up with Christina. How you doing?
Hey, that's not nice.
Sorry.
I made one typo. All right.
It was on the tip of my tongue. I totally messed it up. Sorry, Christian. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Giving you that middle school flashback.
Lucy.
Call him Lucy.
Excuse me, it's Lucille to people who know me. I'm much more upper class than that. Thank you very much.
Lucille. Go to your room.
Jamois, how you doing?
Jamois, I'm good.
Jamois is pretty normal for you though. That's like the extra snobby uppity jam version that we use occasionally when you've done something.
Extra snobby uppity jam?
Sure.
Damn.
There's always degrees of extremity that we can apply to
jam.
Any of this.
Oh no, this is bad jam.
Yeah, exactly. Bad jam's gone off. It's expired. Empty that jar straight away. Jam, how are you? What's going on? Been absent for a little while, but you're back.
Yes. I'm back. And in the interim, I bought a Switch.
You did!
Ooh,
I came so fast, guys. It was Friday and I was heading home from work and it had been a big week and I was just like, oh my god, I'm going to treat myself because the Minecraft Realms had gone live the day before. So that's how long it took, 24 hours.
Switching from your bed seemed like an attractive option when you weren't feeling great.
It really did.
I can't believe it was Minecraft that broke the camel's back on this.
All the others were like, yes, but. This one was like, I know I'm going to use this regularly. Funny thing, I've only turned it on 3 times. But one of those was to try Snip, which I've wanted to play for a very long time. And my brother's over and he's like, we have to play. Because he'd played with his mate the week before. Mm-hmm. We were losing our shit. It was so funny. And playing with my brother is just hilarious. Because in our madness and our desperate attempts to like snip each other to death, we somehow bullshit our way towards the solution. And, the ball goes through the hoop and we both go, yeah, we're genius.
Nice.
It's just so much fun. It's so cute. It's so clever. And we've only done like 1.5 of the worlds or whatever you call them.
Okay.
Of the levels.
I've played Snippet before. Christian, have you played it?
I played the demo by myself, so I didn't really get the intended experience.
Yeah.
Let's assume for some people who are listening right now that they may not get how this game actually works.
Yeah.
So what's the rundown basics?
So you're a little cartoon piece of paper and you play with your friend or your other hand. And there's 2 of them on screen and basically you can wander over to each other, rotate your shape and press a button which will snip wherever you've overlapped off of the other person's shape so that you can cut them down to the size they need to fix, like, solve puzzles and that sort of thing. So it's really interesting, especially when you have to, like, catch a ball, so one of you has to become a cup shape. Your little butt's round, so one of you jumps onto the head of the other and then has to start, like, ramming their butt down, snipping away to turn you into a cup shape. It's disturbing as anything, but very entertaining. And the levels are really cute. They're either as simple as, together you have to make this shape to press this button and this ball will drop down here and then you have to raise this platform with someone carrying the ball and then try and, like, hurl it into the hoop. There's a pool of fish over there and you somehow need to carry out the right colours and get it into that pool over there, and it's just all sorts. And I've probably barely scratched the surface, but so much fun. And my brother, when he played with his friend, he'd already gotten to like the very, very difficult levels. So they'd been the only ones he'd seen. And he was trying to pick it up from that end and it sounded just impossible. I can't wait to get there. I want to play more.
So
I want to play more immediately.
Remind me, does it support more than 2 players or 2 the max?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh no, there was a 4-player. There was a 4-player option. I'm pretty sure in the menu.
I could have sworn there was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there might have been. I don't know how that would work though.
Yeah. Extra
That'd be
set
very
of Joy-Cons
interesting.
maybe.
I wonder if you compete though, like 2 versus 2.
How do you think it would go solo? That's one thing I haven't tried.
Badly.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be anywhere near as much fun.
All right.
Not
I mean,
good.
it's like playing something like Overcooked solo or something. It's just
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, Overcooked, I assume, uses AI for the other cooks? Is
I'm
that...
not
No?
actually sure. I've only played that
No,
multiplayer.
it scales. Actually, wait a minute.
Maybe you can't even do it on certain levels or something. I don't know.
I think you can. I haven't done it in ages.
Yeah. But I get what you mean, though. It's totally not a game that immediately makes sense to even consider playing like that. It's taking away the big benefit of the thing in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing counting in its favour is like our sister was listening from another room in the house and expressed an interest in playing because she heard us having so much fun and laughing like idiots and swearing at each other. So, you know, it must have clearly been entertaining to listen to.
Super good fit for the Switch sort of format gaming as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Minecraft Realms is fun. I find the Switch controls awkward with my big hands, but I'm going to get a Pro controller, I think. And I have purchased Zelda and installed it, but I have not yet started it. I've not been feeling well, and I just did not want to commit to that game
Yeah.
until
But
I
yeah.
was like in the mindset of wanting to just throw myself into that world. So
Do
it's
yourself a
waiting
favor
for
though.
me.
Get that Pro controller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's pretty much exactly the same as an Xbox controller, so you'll be very familiar with it.
The only reason I don't have it is they didn't have them in stock.
Oh right.
I went there and I was looking at like third-party made ones, and they're going, you don't want one of those because that won't work unless it's plugged into the TV or something, apparently. Ridiculous. So, yeah, I got to go back to JB.
That being said, like I've started out playing Switch on docked mode only with the Pro controller, like a whole bunch. But lately, I've been playing handheld a lot. So, yeah, the Pro controller
find it
not so
awkward.
necessary. I don't know,
I
you
get
kinda get used to it.
tired. After an hour and a half of Minecrafting, I'm like, if I want to keep playing, maybe I'll just, graduate to the computer.
Yeah. No, fair
So
enough.
yeah, I usually play TV mode, or I'll play what they call tabletop mode, where it's like you looking at the small Switch screen, but using the controller. I like
Neat.
that mode. Yeah.
It's good.
I'll have to try.
Yeah, with Zelda, I don't know if Christian will agree with me, but I think that, you are okay to take a break during your run through of that game, but I'd probably dedicate a good 4 to 6 hours for the first part at least.
Yeah,
so you can get stuck in.
getting through that like learning area, tutorial area, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's
That's
an
the
area you
plan.
don't want to interrupt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, the Minecraft stuff's been fun. I think we've all been still spending a significant amount of time in there. Not a whole bunch of additional commentary on that, apart from the fact that my son has joined us.
Wait, sorry. Have we discussed the Trident thing on here yet? I cannot remember.
No, we haven't.
Oh, no, we haven't. Yes.
Oh, okay. Huge
We did
development.
discuss that Tridents were in the game now, but we didn't talk about what they could
Huge.
do.
Huge development. I was faffing around in the game, and I managed to get Riptide on my Trident. And I was testing it out, and I'm standing on my jetty, and it's not working. I
Which
went,
is
oh, man.
an enchantment for the uninitiated.
Yes, an enchantment. What it does is, so I jumped into the water and I tried it for the first time. You hold it down, and when you release it, it's like when you throw your trident, except you don't actually let go. It pulls you with it. Really neat. So I can zoom around underwater, and it's really great. But in the overworld, it wasn't working, and I thought, that's fair. Sure. About an hour later in game, it started raining, and I went, hey guys, imagine if, there's water in the sky. No, I can use it. I held it down. Sure enough, it started working. I was, rearing back. I released it. I went straight up into the sky, and I could fly. When it rains, I can fly, and it's amazing. And then I died when I hit the ground.
That was going to be my first question. Does it soften your landing?
I've died a lot. So I was doing really well at not dying until I figured out this Trident thing. At first, I was just going up and down. So I went out into the little bay where we've built the port. Mm-hmm. And I was just in the water going to Aryan facts. I was like, watch this, watch this, watch this. And I'd point it straight up and I'd release and I'd just fly up and they're going, oh my God. And we were just laughing hysterically. Then I realized after a few attempts that when I was midair, I could chain it because it had recharged and I could zip further.
That's awesome.
And then I managed to get all the way into the stratosphere above the rain where it was snow, at which point it stops working because there's no water, and I just started plummeting down. It was incredible. It is so much fun. Super dangerous because you clip something on your way down and you're dead. But, oh my God, it's the most fun. Like, I don't mind dying in Minecraft now because I've got this thing. I just have to be very careful. I remember where I dropped it.
So while you were having fun with the Riptide side of the new Trident abilities, I was having fun with the other side of it, which was the channeling side of things.
Whee!
So you can't actually have this and Riptide. The two are mutually exclusive. It's one or the other. But channeling is the one that you can, an enchantment you can put on your Trident. And when it is a thunderstorm, you can literally call down lightning on whatever you throw the thing at. So that is all sorts of fun, let me tell you. I was running around, jumping down onto bridges, like basically having Immigrant Song playing in the back of my head as I was throwing all over the place. It was wicked. So, but the other thing you can do with channeling is there's another enchantment you can put on the thing called Loyalty, which basically makes it a homing trident. It comes straight back to you after you throw it. So it's almost like you've got an invisible cord that you sort of pull and it comes right back to your hand as soon as you've chucked it.
Truly Mjölnir at that point.
Exactly. It's 100% Mjölnir at that point. It's real good. So, I mean, unlike your Riptide Fun Jam, which works in any sort of water, this only works in a thunderstorm, so it's a lot more limited. So,
that's good because it's concerning. I've not yet encountered you with this power, and I'm concerned.
Yeah,
the recall thing would work anytime, right? It's just the lightning.
Oh, the recall thing works all the time. Yeah, like even out of water,
good.
Which is great. It makes it very, very useful for general sort of world stuff. But the lightning only works when it's thunderstorm. But you can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. If you lightning a skeleton, it turns into the 4 skeleton horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
If you lightning a pig, it turns into a zombie pigman.
Have you done the creeper thing yet?
Yeah, I've done the creeper thing. If you lightning a creeper, it turns into a charged creeper. And then if you can get that charged creeper to explode near other creatures, you get the heads of the other creatures that you can pick up. So
glorious.
Oh, it's awesome fun. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this update. It's been good. But I am now in the space where I'm dividing my time between several very, very large games. So how did you go with your time division this week, Christian?
I haven't been playing Minecraft this week because I've been more engrossed in Octopath Traveler this week.
Cool. Let's talk proper about Octopath because we touched on it very briefly last week, but I think now is time to give some thoughts. So where you at?
Yeah, so I am about 25 hours into the game.
Nice.
And I'm up to like the second chapter with all of my characters. So the first thing I did was went through and recruited all 8 of the party members and did all of their like intro stories, which kind of you do it in a ring around the sort of lake in the middle of the main map.
I'm onto the 4th one of those right now, so I'm well behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So you're still in the process of recruiting all the party members. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So once you do that, that's like the level 1 story for each of the characters. Basically, the way it turns out the game works is every character has 4 chapters, and they have increasingly higher like level requirements, and it's kind of balanced so that it seems to be if you do like 4 characters worth of story, you'll be at an appropriate level to go on and then do the start the next level. Okay. So you don't actually need to do all 8 characters, but if you only did make like 1 character, you couldn't just beeline it through the main story because you'd need to, or you could do a lot of grinding, I guess. But to play it more naturally, it seems like 4 or 5 characters is what it's encouraging you to do.
So balanced around the typical party size of progression.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like I've read some people online saying you can have like an A team and a B team with like 2 sets of 4. But I found myself just focusing on one group of 4 characters because one of the things I did notice about the game is it gets quite repetitive when you're handling all 8 characters. So I even at the point where I'd recruited all 8 characters, I was finding it was wearing a bit thin on me because every character's story is structured basically the same. At least with chapter 1, it's you go to their town, they have like a flashback, and then they meet up with the rest of the party, and then you go to like a cave or a forest and you fight one boss. And all the stories some of them are quite interesting, but they're all structured the same way. And once you're on your 6th, 7th, 8th version of that, you know how it's going to sort of play out, and you just want to kind of get through it. They do give you the option of skipping the flashback cutscenes, but I wanted to do them all to get the most out of the characters. So yeah, I can totally see people missing some of the characters and just wanting to pick up maybe 4 or 5 because it does get a bit grindy. And then one of the things that I've noticed is there's no main quest in the story at all, and I wasn't expecting that. I was totally expecting there to be a main quest, like classic JRPG, something as an evil king or the crystals have been stolen or something like that, and then you'd have the characters' side stories. But the entire game is side stories. The entire game is just the character stories, which it sounds cool. But another criticism I have of this game, which I do like a lot, but there's almost no interaction between your characters. So you'd think in a game where it's all about these characters' individual stories, that there'd be like nice, fun party moments, and there'd be but
I 100% would have expected that.
You totally would. But what happens is when you start a character's chapter, all of the cutscenes for that character, they're alone.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, your other party members disappear. It's only
that's a shame.
Yeah, so while you're doing one character's story, the other characters are basically just combat stats. Like they're not in the story at all. The most it gives you is you'll be walking around the overworld, and it'll come up with a little sign saying like press the plus button for like a character interaction, and then there'll be like a little window with two characters, and they'll have a couple of lines of dialogue at each other, usually about what side quest you're doing or what quest you're doing, which is something like you do get, but that's, from what I can see, literally the only time the characters talk to each other. And it's only ever one-on-one, and it's just about what you're doing at the time. So yeah, it's a bit strange because I was really hoping for like an immersive, fun party where you get to know them all and they'd be chummy and that, but it's not really giving me that.
Now, counter perspective, I'm going to take a stab in the dark here. You mentioned that you're about 25 hours in, you're sort of around the second big sort of story arc for most of the characters.
Yeah.
Now, I know that that's quite a way in, and I think it's a valid criticism that it hasn't sort of happened to this point. But do you think that maybe that is something that will still occur? Like there'll be some sort of convergence later on in the story?
I'm hoping that there's a convergence towards the end. I've noticed a few hints in the characters' stories where there could be a through line through every character's story, like a linking menace, a phantom menace, if you will. And I'm hoping that does develop into something that unifies them. But if it's right at the end, then that's not good enough. Yeah. So fortunately, though, I'm still really enjoying the game because of the visuals and the music, and it is still very charming. The style of the game is very charming, and I am perfectly fine to grind the combat system. I've heard some people who think it's a bit too grindy, but I do enjoy the combat, so I'm still very much enjoying it. I just am a bit disappointed with the story side of things and the character side of things.
Maybe the position they've taken is that the character that you choose as your primary sort of is supposed to be your main quest line. Maybe that's the spin on it.
I do know that once you complete the fourth chapter with your main character, you can then swap them out too, because through most of the game, your character you choose is locked in, and then you can rotate the other three in your party. But you can even rotate out your main character once you've completed their storyline. So I do think that if that's the way they intended it, that the character you pick would be your main character, doesn't really work that way because there's no extra content because of that. That there's no, you get all of the content for every character regardless of who you choose. It's just all the only difference is who's locked in.
So it doesn't have the replay sort of value that we suspected the game might initially.
I think it would have replay value if you did it in a batch of 4. If you did 4 characters through the game and then the other 4 characters through the game, that's the closest I can see to replay value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's tough to sell a replay on a 80-ish hour game anyway. I think that's a huge commitment. So, yeah. I don't know. On one hand, I think that it is a concern that is the case. Like a game that is entirely side stories doesn't appeal as much. I totally agree with you. But on the other hand, I do kind of like that this isn't Final Fantasy. Like that it's not the exact same thing that we've come to expect from Square Enix with these sorts of games where like all of the party members bound together to, try and save Gaia and take on the big threat and that kind of thing. Like it's good for them to have a different big, JRPG as an offering so that every time they do a game like this, it doesn't have to be a Final Fantasy sequel. So
I get that. I totally get that. I would like it if it wasn't, everyone has to save the world, but if the characters still at least had more interaction with each other.
Yeah.
Because it can be a smaller, more contained story, but I want the story to be about the characters bonding and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair.
And then I also wish that they had implemented some of the systems from Bravely Default into the combat. So just to like very quickly run through them, in Bravely Default, which is another Square Enix RPG, they made it so you can like speed up the combat animations to like 4 times. You can set like automatic attack sequences for all of your characters so that when you're grinding, you can just enter the battle and then they'll automatically do the attacks you've set up. And you can also switch the random encounter rate between like down to 0% or up to 200%, however you want. And there's just a lot of cool changes they made to a otherwise, grindy turn-based battle system, which I think they should have implemented into this game too, because I don't think there's any downside to that. I think it's just quality of life improvements. So yeah, it's still good, but I wish it had that from Bravely Default.
Yeah. No, I get that. My thoughts on the game so far are mostly positive. I haven't sort of encountered a lot of that stuff that you just mentioned, but yeah, that does make me a little concerned because I think that all sounds pretty valid. The battle system's a bit of a love or hate thing for me. Like, I think the game is tough. Like, it's definitely not easy. Like, some of those combat encounters are designed to be a strategic puzzle in terms of how you sequence your attacks and use your power-ups. Just for anyone who hasn't played this yet, every turn your characters actually get like a point. It's like a boost point, and you can choose to use them up to 3 max to boost a round of attacks. And it has different effects depending on what you're boosting, but it's usually just a huge damage multiplier or additional actual strikes, which is pretty important. But like, I find that you kind of, a lot of the time, I've been banking them until I get the 3s, because then you get like the huge boost, like a super attack round. And if you've stacked a whole bunch of other effects on it at the same time, you can usually clean house sort of in one round. And I find that makes it interesting enough. If it wasn't for that, I think it would be very similar to, very reminiscent of old school Final Fantasy sort of turn-based combat, where it does get very monotonous and repetitive. But a lot of the enemies that you fight in this game are big sort of hit point soaks. Like, it takes quite a few rounds to defeat some of them, and certain fights can go for quite a while. Like, particularly the boss battles in the opening stages of the game. Some of those fights are long and tough. So. Yeah, and there was an interesting one that I encountered when I was picking up my second character too. Like, I started off with the knight character whose name starts with O, and I've forgotten it already. Ulbrich, that's it. Yeah, thanks. And I picked up Tressa next, who's the merchant. Now, being a merchant, she's definitely not a fighter type. Like, she kind of has like a wind attack power and a spear, and she does a bit of damage, but she's nowhere near as capable in close combat as Ulbrich. She's got other sort of abilities that benefit you outside of that. And when I got into her sort of fight as part of her kind of mini dungeon her first element of the story, it was a very, very tough fight, and I couldn't help but think to myself, if I had have started with her and I didn't actually have Ulbrich there to support me, did the fight scale to the fact that I had 2 characters, or would it have been absolutely like hard as hell with just her? Because I don't know how. Yeah.
The fights do scale. So what you can notice is on the world map, you can see all 8 of the characters and where they are, and it gives you a recommended level. And it starts at the recommended level 1. And then every time you recruit a character, the recommended level for every character increases. So every character you pick up, every like mission scales up. So it does do that. Yeah.
Even not being a combat heavy character though, at a level 1, I still think that her boss fight would have been quite a tough one. So yeah, but that's interesting. All right, well that makes me feel a bit better.
And then there's one other small like follow up from something I said last week. Last week I complained about the English writing that text saying that it was too like year old, and what it turns out is it's actually only the character I started with. So the hunters in the north and Hanit, all of the dialogue for those characters, it's written full of haths and thous and dosts and like straight out of Shakespeare, and it's and I had assumed that was the way the entire game was written, which would have really ground my gears. But because it is only one like town's worth of people, that's not a problem. That's just flair. So
you get out of that area, and then everything cleans up.
Yeah, totally.
Nice, cool. All right, well, I'm still enjoying the hell out of it. I upset my eldest son today because he went to play Switch in the afternoon when he got home from from school, and Daddy had taken it to work to play Octopath.
You are a monster. You are a monster of the first degree.
I am a monster, yeah. But you know what? It's a great game. I'm enjoying it. Yeah. So yeah, it was a good time anyway. So all right, well let's move on to the next item. And by that I do mean the literal next item. Jam and I have been playing some No Man's Sky Next. Which has been fun.
It has been fun. It's No Man's Sky's 2nd anniversary.
Yeah. Or close enough to.
And it's got its second win. It's super cool. They've reworked all sorts of things from technology progression to the way resources are balanced throughout the planets. And I think the flora and fauna have even had some everything's been tweaked. It's an utterly beautiful game. But the most important thing is, for most versions of the game, they've introduced multiplayer. And it's amazing.
Which allow me at this point to say, hello fucking games. All right, whinge time. What the fuck? Seriously. All right, so I, at launch of this game 2 years ago, purchased the copy on Good Old Games. So I purchased via GOG Galaxy, so the Good Old Games client, which of course is the Steam competitor that's actually owned and run by CD Projekt Red. So if you've ever played any of the Witcher games, you've probably got a copy of this client because they all run off that. Now, GOG is known to be a very, very popular marketplace for a lot of sort of niche titles, a lot of older games that have been reworked to have modern sort of reincarnations, and DRM-free content, which is a big selling point of a lot of the stuff that they sell. The fact that there is a good competitor to Steam on the market, also very important. I think that actually the industry needs that. Now, No Man's Sky, of course, is available on PC. You could get it on Steam, you can get it on GOG. It's available on PlayStation 4, and now it just launched this week on Xbox One as well. Now, in line with the massive sort of launch or relaunch of the game and Next as the huge expansion, they rolled out the update to all different regions within the same 24-hour window, but Xbox was first, PlayStation was second, PC was third. The GOG version was last. Now, I was actually at home waiting for the update to drop, and the fact that the version of the game that I had was the very last one was mildly annoying because I was hoping to play it that evening, and it turns out I couldn't because it happened while I was at work the next day. But what was what was a little more than mildly annoying was when the biggest feature of the update, namely the fact that you can play multiplayer now, which is something that they never said would be available at launch, and it has been a huge part of the talking point around Next. They revealed after it launched on GOG that no, apparently the multiplayer version of the game was not coming to that particular platform of the PC version of the game. To which I said, right? What the fuck?
Yet.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, well they
said it's coming later, right?
Later in the year, which is still not fucking good enough. So
what do you mean not good enough? This is a new, you're not owed this.
All right, here's my issue with this. My issue with this is that this is a significant update to the game that gets everybody playing it again. Multiplayer is about community. It's about sort of playing with your friends. It's about, getting together and jumping back into a game that a lot of people probably thought had given up the ghost 2 years ago when it had a disastrous launch. Now, the fact that there is one group of players that have purchased the PC copy of the game that might have actually supported this game from the very beginning 2 years ago and bought the thing, is suddenly being cut out of the biggest feature of the update just because they happen to buy it on GOG, that shits me up the wall. That's really annoying.
But you've bought a DRM-free version of the game, which by definition, doesn't that make it more complicated to update for multiplayer?
As the customer,
that's not on the consumer to know about, though.
But it's also not something you were promised or owed when you purchased it on that platform.
Well, here's the thing.
And they're addressing it too.
None of the communication from Hello Games, they've been very active on Twitter in announcing this, and they never said that it was Steam only. They said PC, PS4, and they could have just had a little asterisk and say GOG coming later this year. But they only mentioned it after it came out and after it became a problem. If they just mentioned it before, mention it before and then it's fine.
But you've had the game 2 years and you're able to get a full refund through GOG, which you did.
I haven't done that yet, but that came afterwards, so let's get on to that.
A note with that is that GOG is eating those losses. Hello Games are not endorsing those refunds.
Yep, 100%.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, I'm playing this up a lot, obviously, just for entertainment value. I don't really care that much. But the fact is that there is a bunch of people out there with a GOG copy of the game that was no doubt, like me, quite frustrated at the time that this was announced because I did not expect that to be the case, and I was just like, what the fuck? And I was actually more annoyed about the delay of going out and purchasing a Steam copy and having to download the 7.9 gig game again. Like, I wanted to jump on straight away. So that was more annoying to me than the cost, which I just ate without blinking. So, yeah, it was annoying. It is a communication issue. Christian nailed it. It is something that if it was a technical problem, sure, understand that. Technical issues happen with game launches and expansions all the time. Tell your fucking customers about it and tell them ahead of time. That's the issue.
I mean, this is the issue it's the same issue from 2 years ago.
Pretty much.
But
that out of the way.
flip side is this update is glorious.
It is. It is really good.
This is a magical game to play at the moment. And I'm only on my 3rd planet. I've not progressed very far. I only put about 20 hours into the original version for all that I intended to repeatedly go back. And we started in survival, which I haven't done before. And oh my God, did that first planet kick our asses.
It's really hard, Jam.
Oh my God. So I tried it solo, died. Everyone else jumped online and I restarted. And I've managed not to die on that character yet because I figured out on this hot planet, run to a cave immediately, and then gather everything you can before you step back out. It's quite punishing just on survival, just to get off that first planet and be sort of semi-self-sufficient.
Which I like because it's a survival game. Like you play the survival mode.
It's great.
It should be
but
hard.
At the same time, when the second planet had no extreme temperatures and no toxicity, I was just like, okay, good, because I just want to focus on my life support first and trying to upgrade stuff. It was quite stressful learning how to play. Thankfully, we're all there for each other because there's not a lot. Oh, it's so very different to the version that I played before, and there's not a lot of clear direction. It is there, you can find it, but when you're already dying, trying to consume all of this information to figure out what you need to do to fix it is quite difficult. But it's very rewarding in that sense because, you know, you do manage to survive it and get to your ship and get it fixed and get off planet for the first time. And oh my God, the second planet's quite pretty, and I know it's not even close to the prettiest that's out there.
That's the other thing too. Like your ship is your sort of one big safe haven. Like once you get into your ship, you can sort of sit in the cockpit, and none of your life support stuff is like going downwards. You kind of stabilize, but you don't start off in your ship. You start off outside. You have to find your ship. So you have this sort of section of panic where you're not safe until you can actually find your ship and then be safe and then read all of the instruction stuff.
It's realistic. You've crash landed, but you don't remember anything, and you're like, So I like that.
Yeah.
I like how more populated the space stations are now. There's like NPCs all over willing to sell you things and stuff. I'm still learning how everything works because it's so very different, but it feels like a lived-in universe. And I really enjoy also not having these ridiculous spires of elements just all around the planet.
Well, yes.
Because that looked a bit ridiculous.
We haven't seen everything yet, Jan. We might still encounter those.
No, that's true. But copper appears to be more rare and underground, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I'm loving it. Like, I don't actually think it's as different as you think it was. I think maybe time has kind of made us forget quite a bit of that.
I haven't played. Well, no, it's quite different, but a lot of these changes have been implemented prior to next. Like all of the base building and farming. I've hardly seen it. I really haven't played for a very long time. So I'm discovering that along with the new features. But just managing to see my character and then see you and Imogen poodling along, like running away from near death and waving at each other in our little hut and sharing resources. We finally figured out how we can trade with each other.
Oh my God,
So
I wish we had worked that out yesterday. That would have made things so much easier.
Imogen's like near death. I'm like, oh, I have some oxygen here.
9th generation Imogen, we should say. She died like 8 times before that.
She's up to 10, yeah.
Jesus.
10th gen. Memo the 10th.
Yeah.
Can I just interject with one other piece of information about the base building and the communication from Hello Games? That because they reset the galaxy with this update, so everyone's existing bases all disappeared, and they didn't know if they'd lost them or not. And it turns out that you have to go to a computer console on a planet, and then you can rebuild your base. But they didn't tell people that was going to happen, so there were a lot of people who were upset that their bases disappeared.
I in fact got an angry message from V during the week complaining about that exact thing. Because she had this huge base sort of already built and stuff, and it was wondering where the hell it went. But thankfully, she managed to find the comms on it fairly quickly and work that out. So that was good.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think it's good in a way because if they've terraformed a lot of planets in terms of changing how they look and the fact that you can build bases anywhere now as opposed to just on flat places, which it was the case before, the ability to kind of get like a free replace to set it up in a different location is a good thing. So,
but have a box pop up when you start the game saying, "Dear player, if you've put a base down, please be aware of this.
Yeah.
There was some artifacts note that popped up on my screen that I still haven't looked into.
Oh, okay, all
I
right.
wonder if that was it.
No idea.
Even though I'm on a new character. I don't know.
When you're running
You know
around
what the
trying
really-
to survive acid rainstorms,
Yes.
you kind of don't
Yeah, I
read
was
everything that pops
distracted.
up.
You know what the really, really, really good thing is, though? Photo mode.
I've not done that yet.
I've hardly touched it. I've got about 7 so far.
Okay.
But photo mode, I'm just going to go nuts with this. I can already tell, like, it's going to get ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, the stuff that I was most interested in sort of trying out was the base building stuff and the multiplayer stuff. The base building stuff looks fun. I think we're going to spend a lot of time sort of locating lost technology and researching new sort of structures to put on our bases. It looks like there's hundreds of things to experiment with, so it's going to be a lot of fun. The multiplayer stuff, as it turns out, a lot smoother than I thought. So you basically, when you load up the game, you can see a list of any friends that you've got that are playing the game as well. And, you know, on Steam, obviously, it's very straightforward because it's anyone who's on your Steam friends list. And so you can then basically join game on one of those people. Your character gets sort of transported to basically where they are in the galaxy. So once you do that, you will sort of shift where you are permanently, because then when you pick up that save game from that point onwards, you will be permanently in that rough location. And basically you can see them and you can interact with them. And now, as of today, we realise you can share inventories with them and transfer between players. And you can share bases as well, I believe. Like, I'm not sure if that allows us to build together on one base. I suspect it does.
Damn.
Yeah, I think that's the case. But yeah,
I am a generous
it's
god.
awesome.
So
on my
you get
base.
locked into
I'll
a particular
allow it.
place, Luke. So if I played with you and joined you, I then couldn't play with Jam.
No, well, we're in the same location now. So if you basically joined on one of us, you'd be transported to our rough location.
Oh, but let's say there's another player. Then I want to play with another friend. I can't
You
jump
just
to
have
them.
to have a matching difficulty save game.
Yeah, so survival
So
mode or
survival
normal
mode.
Yeah.
We've all got survival mode, so we can join each other's game.
Do I
And it'll
keep
just,
my inventory and stuff if I jump around?
Yep.
And your
Okay, right.
progression.
Keep
So
everything.
you can just zip between all of your friends' locations. Yeah. So you
But
don't
you'll
really
end up on a different planet.
Okay.
So you'll get transported to them,
From
which
what
will
I
probably be
understand,
far away
though,
from your starting planet.
I think later on
potentially.
with your base building, you'll actually build like teleporters into your base, and you
Yes,
should be able to
you can
teleport from
network them
location to location. So,
Which is cool.
Which would be awesome. So we can effectively then kind of set up a network. But like all being in the same rough location doesn't mean you have to stay there. Like we can all jet off onto different planets from that point, do our own thing.
It's handy at the start, though.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
starting is difficult. And oh my god, the pirates in space. So annoying.
Yeah. It's a good time. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a survival game with a bit of teeth, and a lot of the stuff they've added to it looks awesome. Multiplayer makes it a whole new game for me. So
Yep, they're going to be doing weekly content very soon, once I guess this is all settled. Free weekly content, events and things for players to get involved in, which is really neat.
yeah.
And that'll, I guess, bring a little more incentive to jump on quite regularly. But yeah, it's so far amazing update. I'm so glad that they stuck with it, because this game is just an experience, and I know I'm going to enjoy exploring for a long time to come.
It's worth it. I mean, we talked recently about some of the greatest sort of redemption arcs in terms of games failing at launch and going on to do great things. There's no way you won't be able to add No Man's Sky to that list now.
Oh yeah, this qualifies.
Yeah.
And it's on sale at the moment on Steam.
Yeah. Which is great. So I was able to pick up my second copy for super cheap, and now that I'm able to get my refund from Good Old Games, because they just announced today that they're going to be doing that, as Christian sort of said, I think I'm actually going to end up about $30 off, better ahead. So
You're scamming the system.
frustration aside, it actually worked out kind of okay. So yeah. But look, I'm really happy for the positive vibes that are going out around this thing at the moment. Like, it's been a real uplifting thing this week to see everybody so positive about it. Like the review status on Steam has changed from mostly negative to mixed, which is actually a huge thing considering how many reviews were out for this game when it first launched.
Damn.
So yeah, and Sean Murray was sort of tweeting that out today saying we're mixed, and I'm just like, that sounds bad, but that's actually a big thing. So
That's kind of adorable.
yeah, and the big thing that's changed too is that the company has sort of thrown open the doors, and now they're communicating on social media again, because they did pretty much the only thing everything you could expect them to do like a couple of years ago when everything went sideways. Like they basically battened down the hatches and just got stuck into adding to the game. And I think that is the best thing they could have possibly done. Like not communicating with people, that's a big problem, but given a lot of the other stuff that was going on around that time and the death threats they were receiving and a lot of the sort of toxicity out there, I get why they did it. The fact that they can now come out 2 years later and actually deliver on some of those promises, even, you know, as late on as they are, is still real good. And under the circumstances, I think that they've turned this ship around and they're doing awesome now. So I'm real happy to see it. Everyone loves a good redemption story, a real good redemption arc. It's awesome to see. So, all right. Well, anyway, that was a good way to sort of soft launch into our news this week. Let's kick into something else that's pretty exciting. You guys seen the new Spider-Man stuff that came out at Comic-Con?
No. I've seen the limited edition console.
Yep.
Looks nice and spidery.
Big shiny red thing. Yep.
Yeah. But what's the deal with the new trailer or footage or whatever it was?
All right, so this game is very quickly approaching territory where I'm concerned that they may be showing too much footage, but I don't know. So the story footage that they've shown so far is chopped up in a way that it probably doesn't give too much away about the story, but they have shown a lot of the characters and maybe sort of snippets of some of the action set pieces, so I hope not too much. Now, it turns out Silver Sable is in the game, so anyone who's familiar with the Spider-Man comics will recognise Silver Sable as being a bit of a kind of, you know, on again, off again sort of nemesis for Spidey, a bit of a mercenary sort of cutthroat sort of character. She, I don't know, how would you describe her? She's kind of, she reminds me a little bit of Huntress from the DC universe, for anyone who's familiar with her.
Doesn't mean anything to
Sounds
me.
like you know more about Spider-Man verse than we do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, she's the thing. So she's in the game. She's going to be a foil for Spidey, it seems. But one of the most interesting things in the story trailer that they showed was that Miles Morales actually is playing a significant role in the game. It looks like he's friends with Peter Parker in this story. So Miles, of course, in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, actually goes on to become Spider-Man in that version of the comics. So that's not a spoiler. That's like
Even
saying
I knew this.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in the Ultimate Comics, like Peter Parker actually dies and Miles takes over. That was a
my
huge
God,
turning point.
spoilers!
So, well, there's a lot more to it than that, Jam. Comic books, you know,
I
weirdness happens. So, but the fact they're both in the game at the same time together, that is weird. So I don't know what that's going to mean. Whether there's going to be two Spider-Mans, one will die, maybe Miles doesn't become Spider-Man, maybe he's just a supporting character instead. I don't know. They're going to do something with it. I think they're setting up this franchise to be multiple games, so, you know, we'll wait and see what happens. But every member of the games press that I have seen posting stuff up about their experience they've had sort of getting early hands-on with this game so far has been absolutely through the roof good. So my hype levels are getting very, very high right now, to say the least. So, and Spider-Man's fucking cool too. So, yeah, it's going to be
Definitely
good.
keen for this.
Yep, September, it's not too far off. We've got some stuff to keep us entertained until then. What else is going on?
So I'll just quickly roll through a couple of smaller items. Pokemon Go continues to introduce more cool things. So they've been on a bit of a roll recently with some updates. The latest one is Lucky Pokemon. So now there's a chance when you trade a Pokemon with a friend that it might turn out to be a lucky one on the other side. And that means that your friend who's received it can power it up for half the Stardust. So the Stardust cost is reduced to power that Pokemon up. And apparently the longer the Pokemon has been in your storage box, the greater the chance of that happening. That's directly in the Niantic statement. So that's interesting. I guess it's maybe encouraging people to like offload some of their older Pokemon or something. I'm not sure what the intention is there, but
It's good. Mechanically, it reminds me a lot of the Poker virus. The Pokerus. Yeah, that was in the main
Christian,
games.
Yes.
I have a spare Zapdos.
Do you really?
Yes.
Well,
I ended up getting 3 wondrous ones.
So I had a bit of a tragedy with the Zapdos weekend, the 3-hour period, where I was at work and I tried to get out during my break and meet up with people from a Discord group, and it all went a bit pear-shaped, so I didn't end up with a Zapdos. So that's cool that you got a spare one.
We should try. We should try and see if we can
we need to
work
upgrade
it to make it lucky.
Yeah, we need to upgrade our friend level more though.
We do. We're not very good friends yet.
It's super expensive. I think at the moment, if we did it, it'd be like 200,000 Stardust or something.
Oh God, I don't have that kind of cash.
You guys are about 60 days away from becoming the next rank, though.
Yeah, the cheapest you can get a legendary trade is 40,000 when you're at the top, which I'm willing to do, and then maybe I could reimburse you in some other way or something. But
yeah.
Cool. That sounds good.
It's sitting in my pouch. It's ready.
Nice.
You'll get lucky with jam. Nice.
I was going to tell you off, but I was coughing. Bad
And then you also get a XP boost for trading gifts now, or you can get XP from gifts, which is cool.
Yep, and Stardust, which was
Stardust.
not...
Stardust, from the
Stardust
gifts.
from
Yes,
them.
that's nice. And hopefully fewer eggs, because I've been finding that I've been getting too many of the Alolan eggs, the 7-kilometer eggs, and they're just
Really?
filling up.
I've had hardly any. Oh, I need more Alolan eggs. I wish we could trade eggs.
I've got like 7 out of 9 are all Alolan eggs at the moment. So yeah.
I got boring 5k ones.
And then another piece of news quickly is an update to the ongoing loot box legal shenanigans going on around the world. So in the Netherlands, there's a new law that's come into effect that makes it so you have to be able to see the contents of a loot box before opening it. I'm not sure if it applies retroactively. It might just be to new stuff, but I know that it's live in Dota 2. So Dota 2 players in the Netherlands can see inside their loot boxes before they buy them. But it's only the very next box. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it's created a situation already where it just pushes the gambling aspect of it one box further. So you can see inside the very next, the one in front of you, but then maybe there's a shiny legendary thing in the box after that. So all it's doing is offsetting that randomness one box.
So what happens if you buy like a bundle? Like say in Hearthstone, for instance, you could buy like a bundle when an expansion comes out where you get like 50 card packs. Are you only going to see the next card pack, or?
Yeah, you're still seeing them one at a time or opening them one at a time. So you'd see the content of the pack that's right in front of you. You'd open that and you see the next one. So if you did buy them in a bundle, I guess that would defeat the purpose of that particular
100%.
aspect of it. Yeah. I might need to double check how that works with Dota, which is, as far as I can tell, the only game that's implemented it. But yeah, definitely provide updates as this develops because it's an interesting industry shift.
It's a weird one. It strikes me as one that's been implemented by people who maybe don't understand how a lot of the different games do this.
Yes, me too, yeah.
Wait and see. All right, well, in addition to that, we've got some big updates happening in Steam this week. So Steam have been making some pretty big moves to roll out some new chat and group features because obviously Discord is kicking ass at the moment and they want a bit of a slice of that pie, and Steam has a huge audience currently, so it makes sense for them to push a bit more into that area. Now, I haven't had a chance to really play with these chat features just yet. But by all reports, they're pretty damn good. I've heard a lot of people speaking very highly of them. So basically, they have moved the Steam chat out of beta. It's available to everybody. And you have the ability to create text and voice channels, and you just do that through a link invite to people. So you can create groups that sort of linger on afterwards, so you can save group chats with custom avatars and titles and all that sort of stuff. And it just, the UI just looks a hell of a lot nicer. So being able to group people, and you can actually see when people are playing certain games now, it actually groups them together on your Steam friends list as everybody's playing that game. Because what was happening before is you'd see sort of all of your online friends sort of together, and they could be playing a whole bunch of different games and they're spread out. But now if you've got, say, 3 friends playing No Man's Sky, it'll group them all together so you can immediately see, oh, there's a whole bunch of my friends playing No Man's Sky. I might jump in and play that game. So, this is all real good stuff. I'm looking forward to having a play with this and tinkering around a bit more. Not going to stop me from using Discord because Discord's still familiar and super easy, and I think that Steam would have to offer something significant to move away from that for us, I think. But I mean, having another alternative certainly doesn't hurt. I'd be very curious to see what their chat recording functionality is like. If we ever have Skype crap out on us, that could be an interesting option. So yeah,
it's an uphill battle, I think, for them to compete with Discord.
Absolutely. But I mean, they have to, because Discord's kind of, the big game in town at the moment as far as chat functionality goes. So yeah, we will see. And the other one to finish up on tonight was World of Warcraft. So the Battle for Azeroth expansion is imminent. The first sort of chunks of that content have gone live already, I believe. But Blizzard have now changed the way that you get into that expansion to be a bit different to previous ones. We're getting to this sort of situation now where there's, 5 or 6 past expansions now worth of content that you would actually have to buy to be up to date. So let me see if I get this right. Core game, the Wrath of the Lich King.
Burning Crusade.
Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King.
Crusade.
So that's 3 purchases already. Then we've got the one with Deathwing, which was Cataclysm. Then we've got the Pandas.
Mr. Pandaria.
Then we've got the Worlds of Draenor. Then we've got the most recent one, which was Legion. So that's 6 expansions plus core game. So
how do I know all these names and I never actually played WoW?
Because WoW's just
impressive.
part of the public culture, that's why. So picking up Battle for Azeroth in addition to that, that's a lot of stuff that you'd have to buy to sort of be up to date. But you no longer have to. So now if you have an active subscription to World of Warcraft, you basically get all of that content minus the most recent expansion, Battle for Azeroth, for free. So you get all of it in one big hit. There's no need to purchase like a war chest anymore, which I'm sure they probably have pulled off retail shelves now because that used to be a thing. Now you can just get an active sub. Basically, you get all of the previous expansion content. Buy the new expansion, you're ready to rock and roll. So when you buy expansions, you typically get like a 1 month sub for free packaged in with that as well. If that's still a thing, then I assume that you could just activate that and get all the previous content when you buy Battle for Azeroth. So I think that's really smart of them to do. Like, it sounds like a good deal, but I see it as a necessary thing because the barriers to entry were extreme, and removing those is the only way to get new people in to play that game. So yeah.
More.
But yeah, there's some cool new story stuff out. They've released a new video series, which is basically called Warbringers, and it's just going to focus on each of the heroes or villains from Battle for Azeroth. So the one featuring Jaina Proudmoore, voiced by Laura Bailey, is now up. So you can check that out. And some good story content there if you're a WoW fan.
This World of Warcraft game, this is the MMO spin-off of Hearthstone, right?
That's right, yeah. If you play Hearthstone, it's an easy gateway into World of Warcraft, I've heard. Yeah. So, yeah. Apparently there's a hero in Hearthstone you can get if you play some World of Warcraft, but I don't know if I want to do that. Anyway. So.
Oh, yeah, I actually did play WoW to level 20 to get the alternate Paladin skin for Hearthstone.
Did you? I still haven't done that. I need to do. I came in at the point where I'd already had like a level 60 to 80 plus character. I was like, I'm not going to go through and do this again just for a hero thing. Although I totally will at some point. Anyway, so yeah, that's all the news. So topic of the week this week, we thought it'd be fun, given that we've been getting involved in a heavy amount of Octopath this last week. Something fairly adjacent to that, as we talked a bit about side quests before, is we actually wanted to do a bit of a discussion on the best side quests in video games, and some of the ways that we look at side quests, their role they play in certain games, some of the pros and cons when they're done well, when they're done badly, and that's our focus for tonight. So yeah.
Let's define side quest. What exactly we're talking about.
All right. So, how would you consider a side quest?
I wrote this little ditty down. So I think a side quest is an optional, objective-based task not required for progression along a game's critical path. That's what I put. So it has to be optional, has to be objective-based, I think, because if you're just running around doing random stuff yourself, that's not really a side quest. And it can't progress the game's critical path, like the main thrust of the game.
So you said ditty, so I feel like you need to repeat those lines in a sing-song voice and make them rhyme.
No, that won't be happening.
Damn it. Yeah, all right.
Do you think that's fair, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there's some games that might blur a couple of those lines a little bit.
It can certainly feed into the main quest. It just doesn't. It's not crucial for the main storyline, for the critical path.
It shouldn't progress you along the main story.
Yeah.
True. I will give one example where that rule kind of got broken to maybe the detriment of the game as we progress. But yeah, I would largely agree with you. I think that's a good way to set it aside. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. Like a lot of the games out these days, unlike when we were much, much younger and a big focus with games was difficulty level and repetitiveness, like you had games that you could just play to death because there wasn't the glut in the marketplace that there is these days. So you might have games like, the original Mario games or, your NES platformer classics and that sort of thing, where you would basically learn the game through muscle memory because you play it over and over and over again. And it doesn't need to be like a vast, wide open game to get that level of enjoyment because the repetition was fine. It was what we expected to do. But these days, we've got so much stuff vying for our attention that in order to actually become properly invested in a game, it needs to offer us a lot more. It needs to give us a substantial experience and, beyond maybe just that critical path story. So people look at the dollar that they spend on a game versus the minutes that they get out of it, and often that drives them to think that bigger is better in terms of the amount of stuff that they can do. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't always think that's true, personally, but it's certainly one of the perceptions out there for a lot of people. So,
I think as games have become sort of bigger and more sort of narrative focused, when you've got like a particular story you want to tell in a game, the actual like number of story beats may not add up to a fully immersive, fleshed out experience. Like you may actually be able to knock out those story beats quite quickly if you just line them all up. So having side quests is a way to give your player more to do and get more time and more immersion out of your game rather than just knocking off those story beats. That's, I think, kind of one of the ways that they've been added.
I think that there are also good ways to do it, and there are bad ways to do it.
Oh, for sure.
So, should we break down some of those? So, Jan, what do you think are some of the good ways to have side quests in a game? What stuff would you see as positives?
One quality that always, when done well, appeals to me is when it contributes to building the world. I love world building. In RPGs, usually the second I get some freedom in an open world, I'm running off on tangents. Like I'm ignoring the main storyline because I want to discover locations and characters and stories and lore, although the lore I'm not as keen on always. But when a side quest helps immerse me more, whether it's alluding to the plot development and like informing me a little more about what's going on in the main quest line, or letting me interact with characters, and it has really good, believable dialogue that makes it feel like, yes, they live in this world and they're experiencing it here. It doesn't matter how mundane or fantastical the side quest may be, if it feels like it's rooted in the world that they've built, it feels rewarding and it feels like my character is there for purpose, even if it's picking up something stupid, some stupid fetch quest. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty crucial one for me that makes them stand out when they're done well.
I think it would be fair to say that like side quest content that's done well that you have really connected with, that would largely drive your love of the Mass Effect series. Would I be correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Mass Effect has some tragic side quests.
Yeah.
But also some magical ones that just developed character relationships, which is like the core of my experience with Mass Effect and why I was so invested. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Developing character relationships is a huge one for me. Any game that's like party based, like we were talking about Octopath earlier, or there's a cast of characters, having those opportunities where you're doing something maybe a bit more low key than the main story. You're not saving the world. You're just like the Citadel DLC in Mass Effect is a good example.
That tops my list.
Yeah, it's just like really fun world building character based stuff. I think that's so valuable.
Yeah. Good for pacing too. Like you don't always want the game to be sort of, ratcheted up to 11. You want to have those low spots where things aren't quite as deadly and as serious to sort of make the stuff that is like hardcore important to the story like seem more important at the time that it happens. So, yeah.
But it's a chance to add a different kind of depth to your character development too. You can be super serious on the main quest line and all this stuff's happening and yes, there's a romance happening and all these important things. But then you want to see them, mucking around, cooling off, doing something stupid and funny, and you want that. I don't know, it's interesting to see how they develop the character with downtime, or when they have to focus on someone else and maybe potentially something trivial and not the big bad, because then it's a different kind of interaction. And if their personality is written well and the dialogue's written well, you get to see a different side, and it helps flesh them out.
That's something I wanted to mention too, like in terms of like tone of the game. And the Citadel DLC from Mass Effect is a great example of this too. Like sometimes you want to do something with the tone of the game that wouldn't otherwise fit with the main sort of direction that game takes. And it's good to have that cased within a side quest so that it doesn't distract from what the game is at its core. So, and that can be in terms of character tone, relationships, actual like game mechanics as well. Like if you want to do some more experimental stuff that doesn't fit with the critical path stuff, I think that's really good to build into side quests. And I have the perfect game to illustrate how this works really, really well, or games, I should say, and that's the Yakuza series. That is an absolute perfect example of this, because the thing about Yakuza is it's a really gritty crime drama where the main character is pretty much like an anti-hero in a lot of ways. Like he's involved in organized crime. He's a bad guy who's trying to do good things. and he's got a past that, it catches up with him and everyone around him, gets hurt essentially in different ways. But the side quest content of that game is wacky and silly and dumb as fuck. It's really fun. Like you could be, in Japanese arcades, mucking around with gachapon machines, at a batting cage, you could be singing karaoke, you could be doing all these weird side quests that involve trying to help a dom in a sex slave dungeon basically get her confidence back so she can entertain her clients better, all sorts of weird, wacky shit like that. There was a point where I actually broke up a illegal underpants smuggling ring in one of the games. It was like trafficking used girls' underwear, which is a very Japanese thing. Anyone?
Very Japanese.
Yeah, but this sort of stuff does not fit with the organized crime narrative of those games. It does fit with silly, funny, wacky side quests and, Japan.
Does it feel like it fits in the game, though? Because that's pretty important.
The way they do
stuff.
it, yes. I think it's hilarious. And it serves really well to break up the pacing a little bit. So
that's good.
Yeah. I mean, the game has its humor in some of the main sort of critical path stuff as well, but this is a really good example of how you can just sort of explore the setting a bit more and have some fun while still remaining serious on the core path of the game. So, yeah, I think it's a good example. Yeah.
Something we haven't mentioned yet is I do enjoy side quests that have like material rewards too. Like there might be a side quest chain that if you complete them all, then you have to fight an optional boss or you get like a unique weapon in a game or something like that.
Yeah.
Like God of War comes to mind where there's a bunch of in side quests that you do, and if you complete them all, then you get like a full sort of legendary armor set, and you're just having that as like having extra material rewards too, it is fine for side quests as something to give you a sense of accomplishment.
One of the big ones that springs to mind for me immediately with that is Final Fantasy VII, like getting some of the best limit breaks in the game, like with the summons, like Knights of the Round Table, for instance. You have to do some crazy side quest stuff to get that. And those things like radically change like what you have available towards the end of the game in terms of power level and cool factor. So yeah. Absolutely. That's a good one. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good way to do side quests that sort of showcase a lot of the game's strengths as well. Like you want side quests that focus in on the things that the game's good at and not the things that it's crap at. So I think that's maybe one of the areas where perhaps Mass Effect Andromeda fell down a little bit because some of the side quests in that game were sort of more of the repetitive stuff as opposed to some of the great character building moments that the previous sort of entries in that franchise had. And you probably find other examples of games that have doubled down on the stuff that maybe is not that great, just to add content sort of thing. Actually, World of Warcraft falls down in that regard too, I think. Like a lot of the fetch quest stuff in that game, it sucks.
Yes.
A lot of the side quests revolve around that, and it's tedious. Yeah.
I think Assassin's Creed is another one that springs to mind for me, as far as negatives go, where they just pack it with especially the older games, so many repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
Where you just do the same small little mini action over and over again. And it's just, side quests shouldn't feel like padding, which they do in some of the Assassin's Creed games.
Definitely.
I would say, though, that when they're collectible type ones, like the flags in Assassin's Creed, which are designed to really show off the world that's been built and crafted, I don't mind them if it's a gorgeous game and a fun game to explore. Like Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
I love running around looking for the secret, like, hidden bits because that is just such a gorgeous game to get lost in. And so I forgive the simplicity of, collect this thing that's somewhere over there. Like, I think it's a weak premise, but the reward is not just this item that you find. It's seeing this extraordinary environment.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy doing.
I like collectibles that have some sort of purpose in the game, but maybe are not super overpowered as well. Actually, one really good example that I want to call out on this is actually from Uncharted Lost Legacy. So when you're running around that game with Chloe and Nadine, there's this one big stage in the middle of Lost Legacy, which is kind of like this open world area called the Western Ghats. So it's a very lush sort of jungle area with a bit of sort of stuff that you have to traverse with your Jeep and a lot of sort of running and jumping over sort of ruined jungle temples and that kind of stuff. Now, this area is so large that there's actually some additional puzzles that lead to collectibles. And if you go to the effort to get all of them in this area, you can actually pick up a special collectible, which is a necklace you can wear. And this necklace actually highlights the location of other collectibles within a very small radius. So it actually helps you get more of that throughout the rest of the game. So So I think that's a really cool thing because it doesn't make you more powerful in terms of the main part of the game. It helps you more with the stuff that you've already gone and spent the extra sort of effort pursuing in the side quests. To sort of, continue doing that throughout the rest of the game. So it's a really good feature for people who want to spend the time getting collectibles to make it easier to get collectibles, essentially.
Do we think that straight up collectibles, are they side quests or is that a different category?
Depends.
I would consider them side quests. I would lump them in, personally.
It's tough. Like, I look at games like Horizon Zero Dawn, for instance, which has a lot of collectibles. You've got the sort of tokens that you can pick up, the Bunuk tokens. What are they?
Something like that.
And that kind of stuff. Like, I see those as collectibles, but often they're sort of puzzle related. Like, you kind of have to find a way to get to their location. Like, you can see where they are on the map, but you can't always work out how to get to them. It's a bit of sort of problem solving to sort of work out the best traversal path to sort of, zip line over to this and then climb this wall and do this, that, and the other. So they are kind of side questy in that regard. So, I think it depends. Like, if it's just a straight pickup that you can sort of go out of your way to get, then maybe not. But if there's actually a bit more content revolving around it that adds to the game experience, then that's where I'd say probably, it is. So
I think the definition gets a little blurry. There, like so many definitions do. It has a fuzzy edge where I think generally I would consider a side quest kind of more contained. Like it's something that you can go and do and accomplish in the side of the game, not something sort of over the course of the game collecting 60 of a certain item and then sort of going 2 out of 60, 3 out of 60, 4 out of 60. I don't really see that so much as a side quest, but I can see how people might, and I can the definition does get fuzzy. So.
All right, let me give you a good example then that calls back to what I was saying at the beginning of this topic, where there's certain ways that I think doing side quests that actually contribute to the critical path can be done really badly. So in all of the Batman Arkham games, there are pretty much Riddler-related puzzles, okay, in just about all of them. Hang on, I'm just trying to think. All 4 of them there are.
I like the Riddler puzzles.
The Riddler puzzles can be fun. However, the Riddler puzzles in Batman Arkham Knight, the very final game in the series, they made a big fucking mistake with them. So
they do.
Yeah. So, okay. So the Riddler puzzles in pretty much all of the games, they vary a lot. Like, they usually involve using your equipment in weird and wacky ways to access items that are hidden behind walls, that have these different trap puzzles that sometimes you need to find out how to open his hidden doors, all that kind of stuff. You often have to come back to them later in the game after you've gotten certain power-ups too, because you might not actually have the gear or the skill set to do it in the early games. So you have to, it's a bit Metroidvania in that way. Yeah, exactly.
Pew, pew, pew.
So you have to sort of come back and get them later. Now, the ones in Arkham Knights, they've had the problem of, one, showcasing one of the game's weaknesses, which is there were some really repetitive Batmobile-related Riddler quests, which were just shit. So they were annoying and frustrating and not enjoyable at all, which was a bad thing. But the biggest mistake they made with the Riddler trophies in that game is that the actual ending of the game, like the real true ending, the full cutscene version of the ending, was only attainable if you finished every single one of the Riddler side quests.
That's super bullshit.
Which is crap.
That's super bullshit.
Yeah, and that made me super angry. So I did not do all of that stuff, and I went and watched that shit on YouTube. Screw that.
In my prep for this episode, one of the big things I wrote was, don't punish me for not doing side quests.
Absolutely.
I never want to feel like I've missed out on, like, my ending shouldn't be bad or my ending shouldn't be incomplete because I didn't do side quests. That's crap.
That is probably one of, if not the worst example I can think of. So, yeah.
Okay, so problems with side quests. We're here.
We're here.
I personally, big one for me, and we've spoken about how it's fun sometimes having new mechanics and wacky zany things. If it breaks my immersion in the game, it's a big no-no for me. I'm trying to think of an example. What's a good example?
Well, it kind of comes into the pacing.
Game-breaking immersion?
Yeah. Well, basically, there's a time and a place, and some games it really suits having those wacky, zany, crazy things.
Yeah.
Or weird, bizarre things that are just absurd. Like GTA 5, you can, get high and shoot space aliens, but then there's kind of space aliens in the game too, and it's such an irreverent, silly game for all that it's got some amazing realism in a lot of ways that, it's fine. It's a funny little ha-ha, what a joke. But other games, I don't know, it just, I don't want to get pulled out. If they've spent a lot of time constructing this world to get me absorbed and invested, I don't want to be like kicked out because of a bit of silliness.
Yeah. I think you had this problem with your playthrough of Horizon Zero Dawn, Jam, from what I saw as an observer, because you got so disconnected from the main story because of all the side quest content you pursued. So
that's not a flaw.
You don't think so?
Just because I'm obsessed with photo mode doesn't mean I'm not loving the game.
Photo mode's not a side quest.
It is for me. I turned it into my own. Oh my god. No, I am trying to complete every side quest in Horizon Zero Dawn slowly. I don't think that's a flaw, even that I haven't finished the game, because it's a stunning game and I will finish it, and I know that.
But do you think it'll be hard to get back into the main story as a result of how much time you spent away from it?
Oh, no, you forget how fickle my memory is for these things. I could have spent just 2 weeks away and forgotten, like, crucial character names and shit.
Right.
I'm adept at picking things up where I may have forgotten. But no, I mean, break my immersion in that I truly believe that there is no way in hell that my character would ever consent to doing some stupid like it betraying the character's personality, or like just being completely inconsistent with a sequence of events, or just within the reality that they've crafted. If it just blatantly doesn't fit and there's no grounds for that kind of silliness in the narrative, I don't know, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
When that happens for me.
I get you.
Totally. Something similar, I guess not really too similar, but I hate it when games lock me out of side quests at arbitrary times.
Oh,
or there'll be like a list of side quests and then I'll progress a little further through the game and then suddenly I'll notice some of them have been struck through and I can't complete them anymore. If I've got a side quest, warn me before I'm going to like progress past the point where I can complete it anymore. That shits me. So
modern games have gotten better at that. Like there's been a number of ones lately where they do telegraph pretty strongly this is the point of no return. If you've got anything to do in the game world, do it now before you do the next bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of a recent example where that's been a big problem, but I guess I'm just scarred from some previous experiences.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I will say there's the flip side too, and that relates to, I guess, one of our points, which is over-leveling for main content. Getting so lost in a game that doesn't scale to your experience level, i.e. Dragon Age Inquisition. I was in Hinterlands for so long. And it was my choice because I was warned through, I guess, communications channels and by friends not to do that. I think the game warned me too. It said, you get out, leave, you can come back later. There's so much to do in that starter area that by the time you leave it, if you've done it all, or most of it, it's just everything else is like spotting flies.
Yeah.
Well, easy flies, slow flies.
It's a double-edged sword too, because if you become over-leveled for the main content as a result of doing too many side quests, you just become a murder machine and take all the challenge out of the game. But by the same token, if you don't do enough side quests and you find you can't do the main story content because you haven't done any of them, that sucks too.
It's why it's good, and Dragon Age Inquisition did this well, to have a suggested level for the content, or conversely, to scale it so that you go in at level 50, it's prepared for you at level 50.
Yeah.
You don't want to overscale too much of a game though, because you want to feel like your progression's actually mattering in some way. But but scaling is definitely useful in some parts. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, there's got to be some sort of benefit to complete them as well, though, and I think that the benefit needs to be telegraphed to a certain extent, because having completely hidden benefits you don't understand what the point of pursuing a side quest is doesn't really propel you to want to do it.
I disagree.
So
in the whole letting you know beforehand thing.
It doesn't need to spell it out. It just needs to give you enough of a reason to pursue it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, give me a hook.
I will be disappointed afterwards, but I'm perfectly happy to commence something not knowing where it's going to end up.
Okay.
Because I like to be surprised.
Well, let me give you one example then, because you mentioned Dragon Age Inquisition. So one of the big side quest sort of activities for Dragon Age Inquisition is actually hunting down the 7 odd or whatever it is dragons in the world.
Oh, yeah. Did I do all of them?
So that's an interesting thing to do, and like finding where they are is part of the challenge, because they're all sort of hidden about the world in different maps, and actually sort of engaging them and beating them is really difficult. They're probably the hardest boss fights in the game, and they take friggin' forever. Like some of these fights are literally an hour long. Like you have to
super satisfying though. I did them all.
Yeah. They are fun.
I found them great.
But after doing a few of them, I found that they were actually quite similar in some respects, and I didn't feel compelled to do all of them because it wasn't clear to me what I was getting out of it in terms of like upgrades or gear or sort of crafting components and that kind of thing. Like I got some cool stuff.
Bragging rights, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, it was like the visuals of like, because the dragons look really cool. They're in some interesting locations. So I was driven forward by where is the dragon? What's the fight going to be like? Even though mechanically they did kind of get repetitive. Yeah. Visually, I thought they were all kind of distinct.
Yeah, fair enough. Seeing it as an experience.
It's a test of skill. So you can have skill testers, and it's good to have them optional too. You don't want people to be required to be absurdly good at the game if they're just picking it up, casually. Yeah. But having them off to the side like this is really good. And sometimes just succeeding in some sort of skill test is itself, very rewarding if it's done right and if it's constructed well. But yeah, when there's no real incentive, it sucks.
Actually, I'm going to contradict myself right now because I just realized there's another game that has a very similar thing that I actually love the shit out of. And that is the Valkyrie fights in God of War, because it's very similar to the dragon fights in terms of the level of combat difficulty and the lack of like telegraphing ahead of time what you get out of it. But because of how good that combat system is, I guess I just loved it. So yeah, all right, I can see your points. Absolutely.
Yeah, the experience can be rewarding in and of itself. But yeah, there needs to be some payoff. Even for me, I mean, it can be seeing a pretty new view in a game. That's gorgeous, but it's got to be meaningful to, I guess, most of the people playing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want 50 bear butts for one, silver coin situation.
Yeah. And you absolutely, above all else, do not want to commit the mortal sin of having a side quest that is better than the main story of the game.
Oh,
thankfully,
no.
I can't think of too many that's the case, but that would be super bad.
Witcher 3 pushed that a bit.
With the Bloody Baron?
Bloody Baron.
Yeah.
That's like, when you ask somebody what's a good side quest, if they've played Witcher 3, they're going to mention Bloody Baron.
Yeah. That is a really good side quest. It's probably one of my favorites of all time, actually. So, yeah, that was good. But yeah, I think there's enough other content in that game that it's not better than the main game for sure. It's a highlight. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, can we all sort of say where we land on side quests in terms of, do you generally take the efforts to complete everything, or does it really depend on the game, or how do you feel?
Well, not everything.
Very game dependent for me. If it's an open world collectathon, like I'll probably skip a whole bunch of stuff.
Yep.
But if it's a more narrative branching game, like with the main thrust, but then side missions that have an individual story and characters, I'll definitely try and do all of them. But yeah, no collectathons for me, really.
Yeah.
If it sends me back repeatedly to old areas, like in a stupid loop, I'll get bored. But if it's introducing something new or showing me something new, or I don't know, I do enjoy going off the main path quite frequently, which is why I have so many games I haven't finished.
Yeah. I land pretty close to where Christian does, I think, but the one selling thing for me is if it involves character interactions that further build on the relationships of some of the main characters in the game. I'll always try and complete all of that.
Yeah, I would too, definitely.
Yeah. But
I'm definitely more driven to do side quests because of story stuff than gameplay stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would agree. Because, I mean, that seems like it would be like reading a book and then having a chapter in the middle that you skip over because you couldn't be bothered reading it, and then you don't get the full story at the end, which seems stupid. So, yeah. But, yeah.
Also, if they're really funny.
Yeah, exactly. Comedic side quests are the best. There's some good stuff there. So, Jam, you said that the Citadel stuff may be your favourite side quest ever. Is that?
It's the top of my list. It stands out. It's all so not essential to completing the game because it came out after the game was, completed. But super rewarding if you're a fan and if you love the characters. And there's so much silliness in it and fantastic dialogue and relationship building and ending. I don't know. It's just magic.
Yeah.
It's everything that I wanted to sort of celebrate the 3 game investment I made in those characters.
That's fair. And Christian,
Just
would Bloody
beautiful.
Baron be yours, or have you got a different example of your favourite?
I think my favourite side quest might actually be from Nier Automata.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's a game that I'm on record as loving, and it's the theme, like thematic reasons, and a lot of the side quests in that game are all about just reinforcing core themes of the game, where they may not have really interesting gameplay, or the characters maybe you only interact with them a few times, but if you actually take the time to think about what the quests involve and sort of philosophical ramifications of some of the quests, because a lot of Nier Automata is sort of very philosophical, and yeah, so there's some great side quests in there. One in particular called the Wandering Couple, which I love. Did you want me to explain the sort of gist of it? Yeah. So in Nier Automata, there's no humans in the entire game. Everyone's an android who looks like a human, and they kind of have the free will of a human. And the impact of this side quest will definitely be lost just recounting the main points, because it's stewing in this rich soup of a game. But basically there's a couple, like a male and female android who run away from this resistance camp and side with this peaceful village of the enemy. So there's like a pacifist enemy village, and they hide there, and then when you meet them you need to do a basic fetch quest to fix the male in the couple. He needs some maintenance, and then through the dialogue, you find out that they're planning on like fleeing across the sea because they don't want to be part of this conflict. They're scared and they kind of just want to escape. And then you meet them again a little later, and there's this character called the Emancipator, who's kind of like a trafficker who's going to send them across the sea. But they're betrayed, and a fight ensues, and then the male gets damaged and the female runs away. And then you reunite with the female android when you find her badly damaged, and then it turns out there's a twist in the story, and the female the whole time had actually been trying to reformat and reprogram the male into like a combat version of an android, because she's sick of being like scared and afraid, and he kind of isn't protecting her in a way, and then what it turns out that she's already reset him 6 times before.
Oh,
so he's kind of living this loop where he kind of reverts back to his original personality, and she is continually like resetting their relationship in time backwards, and it ties into some of the themes in the main story in a really big way, where if you progress further through the game to the climax of one of the endings, knowing that sort of thing, like having that in the back of your mind, that there's this idea of having like your personality reset against your will, and then reliving the same loop, but the person that you're with has been sort of inflicting it upon you the whole time. It just informs the themes of the game really nicely, and it's very cool to think about.
Oh, nice. I don't actually have like a favorite side quest per se. I've probably got more favorite, like a couple of favorite games for their side quests as opposed to just a single side quest. So on that list, the 2 I would single out at the moment would absolutely be Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because I consider just about all of the shrine puzzles in that game to be side quests. And the shrines are absolutely magic. That's a huge part of that game. And if you want to go one step further, like all of the main dungeons of that game, like the 4 main sort of ones that you do, they are kind of side quests because you don't need to do any of them.
Technically, yeah.
Isn't most of the game side quests? From my understanding, you can like very quickly get to the technically boss fight.
Technically can make a run at the last boss after finishing the starting area. So yes.
Yeah.
If you want to be super technical about it. But I think it's much more reasonable to say that out of those 4 main areas, you could quite easily beat Ganon only doing 2 or 3 of them. So yeah, it kind of does mean that the rest of it can be relegated to side content, but you do miss a huge part of the game if you do that. But yeah, there's a significant number of other things in that game that aren't necessarily shrine related or the big sort of dungeon related for the Guardians, but that are side quest content as well. And I don't want to mention any of it specifically because Jam's going to play this game soon, and I don't want to spoil it for her. But there's a ton of side quest activity in this game that is absolutely awesome, so you'll enjoy it. But the other one that I'd call out for being like one of the best games for approaches to side quests I've ever seen is actually God of War. Like, I think that the pacing in that game when the world opens up and a lot of the side stuff becomes available is just absolutely perfect. And I think we're probably enough past the game being released now that I can mention one reason why that's the case. The big open basin that forms the center of the main world map actually changes at different points of the game, allowing access to new areas.
Spoilers.
So I won't say how it changes or why it changes, but just...
I mean, I've pretty sure I know.
You know exactly
why. Even though I haven't
why.
seen it happen, I know how.
yeah. So, and
it just makes sense.
Yeah, at the times that those changes happen and the way that it sort of opens those areas up, it makes areas that you've already visited sort of relevant to go back to again to see what else has been revealed in them. But it also happens at times in the story where you're not actually running sort of hell for leather for something that's like a big crisis that's happening. It's actually during some of the very carefully crafted low spots in the narrative. So you actually feel like you can go and do the exploring without breaking the chain of the main story and seeming like you're doing something that's super low priority at that moment. So, you know, the timing is actually perfect for when it occurs. So, yeah, I love that. And the way that you can actually go back and do some of that stuff after you finish the game without making it seem out of sync with the narrative too is just perfection. I think it's excellent the way they approached it. So,
I have another game that I have to shout out. Borderlands 2.
Oh, yes. Are you going to talk about the tea party?
I have four that stand out in my mind. Tiny Tina's tea party.
Yep.
Hells yes. Looking for some badonkadonks. That was hilarious.
That was good.
Fighting off hordes of people while this crazy little girl is having a tea party with, I don't know, rockets?
Yeah.
Was one of them rockets? It's stupid. Stupid good. Did you ever do the Face McShooty
No.
side quest?
I never did
I
any of
did
those.
that one.
just
I did that
remembered
one.
them.
Yes, it's called Shoot This Guy in the Face. And he's just standing there saying, shoot me in the face. That's all it is. And you shoot him in the face. It's so stupid. It's tops. That game, like, I would go back, even if I was over-leveled for the side quests, and complete them just for the humour and stupidity that's involved in them. Claptrap's birthday party. Do you remember that?
Oh, I
Trying to get, like,
Vaguely remember that.
deliver invites and no one wants to go. It's so sad. Poor Claptrap. And the entire D&D themed DLC. Holy crap.
I never saw that. That sounds
What?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like.
Dude.
Is that like a Tiny Tina based DLC as
She
well?
narrates it. She's essentially
Yeah.
the DM.
Oh, wow.
It's glorious. And I don't think I ever even finished it. I got to do that. Just Borderlands is a game, because of its ludicrous insanity, like they could do anything as a side quest and yet you still get surprised and delighted. Like,
Yeah.
and the humor is just, I love that game.
As much as I'm excited for Rage 2, bring me Borderlands 3. I'm more than ready for that game. It's going to be good. Yeah. All right, well, that is the best side quests. Good discussion on that. I think we shared some interesting game stories. So, yeah. Thanks for that, guys. That is a show. So, thank you, everybody, for listening. Jam, where can people find us on the interwebs if they want to talk to us about their favourite side quests and
You can email us. Side quest, no reward. Mail at Party Loaded. I mean, we might acknowledge, but, you know, I don't know.
We will.
Is there a reward?
There's an auto
Should we
reply
start
set up.
Mailing out candy. Mail at partyloaded.com. I can't talk. Facebook is Party Loaded. Twitter at Party Loaded Show. YouTube.com/channel Endgame. And if we're twitching stuff, which has been a bit quiet lately, I think, but we're at twitch.tv/partyloaded.
We need to find a spectacular planet in No Man's Sky, and then we will share it with the world.
We need to No Man's Sky, we need to Overwatch, we need to Minecraft. We are playing some and creating some amazing stuff.
Yes, we are.
We should be recording this crap.
For a low time in video games at the moment, we're finding plenty to keep occupied with, that is for sure. So, yeah, is good. I can't even remember the next big thing that's coming out. Like, I know Tomb Raider's coming out soon, Spider-Man's coming out soon. I think we've got a bit of a gap until then. I'm forgetting about something, I know. I don't know.
So, yeah, contact us about your favourite side quest, because I know I'm really bad at remembering things. I had to, like, surf the interwebs to remind me what was fun. I know I've forgotten stuff.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, in next week in gaming, I think we all know a bit of the stuff we're going to be playing, but I know that we all are planning to get some Slay the Spire in for our party Game of the Month discussion next week. So that's going to be good. Christian, anything else on your plate besides more Octopath?
I think it'll just be mostly Octopath. Maybe I'll try and jump into Minecraft again.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of Octopath.
Check in on our friend Adrian and his Ice Palace of Doom.
It's pretty awesome.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but down with the south.
Yeah.
So,
North will reign.
That's going to be good. All right, well, Jam, more No Man's Sky for us, I'm sure. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, and I might jump back into Minecraft. I'm trying to create this glorious map, like one-by-one maps, the super zoomed-in ones of our whole area, because it's starting to turn into this amazing little, like, community.
Yeah.
With roads and lighthouses to warn people of the land. Oh, some really cool stuff.
It's looking good. I got to jump back in
yes,
Minecraft too and make sure that my son hasn't burnt the realm down. We've allowed him access. Yeah.
Remind him I have admin privileges.
Oh, he knows.
And I will smite.
He knows. He also knows that I have daddy privileges and that I will smite.
Yeah. And next I'm going to ask him to remind you that I have admin privileges and I will smite. Luke. I will smite.
He probably will too. Yeah. I'm also going to try and check out the Mega Man X Legacy Collection this week because that just came out. So I love me a bit of Mega Man. So check that out.
And Zelda. I got to try and start Zelda.
Yeah. All right. Well, too many games. Not enough time. Let's
Sucking
call
myself
it.
up.
And we'll sign off now. Go play some games. See you all again in a week. Thank you very much for listening tonight and good night.
Have fun.
Bye-bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.